It may just be the third series of the broadcast, but we're already up to the winners bracket final here at HCS ANZ Open number 1. I'm your host, Maniac. Still joining me here on the cast is Hoots and Justin. Now, look, an amazing day we've had so far. The winners bracket final is going to be nuts. Now, we were all talking prior to the start of today's action. We think that this is going to be the grand final as well. But gentlemen, the day we've had prior to us, the last few matches we've seen, I think it's just a prelude to what we're going to see in the next match. Justin, we've called out that this is going to be the match to watch. Do you still think that?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm so excited to be able to cast these two great teams. So many just absolute monsters on both squads, and these are the two teams they've been preparing for a very long time. Infinite got a surprise release, but they weren't caught off guard.
Now, we did see a lower bracket match just take place, so we'll have a look at that bracket in just a second before we move on to this winners bracket final match, because a lot has gone down. We've already said goodbye to some teams, so let's just walk back the clock a little bit. What we saw in the earlier rounds, Idolize, they took down KBM 2-0. Nuke and Pave, the shock elimination of Direwolves in that 2-0 series, obviously took us up to where we are now. Now, Idolize versus Carbon, we saw Idolize take that out in the match that we just watched, 2-0. And Nuke and Pave did eliminate BBR. So unfortunately, we say goodbye to the grandpas of the ANZ Halo scene. I'm sure we'll be seeing them back. But Nuke and Pave versus Idolize, that is going to be a match and a half for sure. Meanwhile, up in the upper bracket, we've gone through this. We know there's been a lot of awesome games. What we need to call out as we move into this winners final is the fact that neither team here, Divine Mind nor Nutribullet, have dropped a single map. Hoots getting this far, the winners bracket final, it just shows the domination of these two teams.
Yeah, absolutely. But the fact is someone is going to have to lose a game now. And it's about how they bounce back from that as well, I think. So, it's just a case of not losing your head in that first loss and regrouping and going back in again. But I'm expecting this series to be a lot closer than some of the other ones we've seen.
Getting this far, I have no problem at all saying we are all winners. And Justin, you would probably feel the same, right? Surely, even if you drop the map, you drop the series, getting all the way to the winners bracket final is big of the first Halo Infinite event, right?
Absolutely, and Hoots, he touched on it just then. One of these teams is going to have to drop a map, and I think he's completely right. And how they bounce back from that loss is really going to be the key. But so much experience between both of these squads, and it's just going to be a bloodbath. We talked a lot about the Nutribullet squad, but Divine Minds, they've got some monsters themselves. But highlighting Nutribullet here, Seduced, Barcode, Madzi, and Prades. We've said it all. These guys are just cracked out of their minds, and they're here to play, and they've been proving it so far today, Josh.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to have an interview with Barcode a little earlier from his previous win. We know that he's cool, calm, and collected. You mentioned Seduce in there. He was, the boy wonder for the last few years of the Australian Halo scene, absolutely dominating, particularly in Halo 5. He's got some international experience as well. Just so much really, really high-level experience on that squad, but they are up against Divine Mind, yet to be seen here on broadcast. Pip, Rated, Berserk, and Slays, massive names. I started the Pip fan club back in, I think, 2016 or 17, and you've also got Rated in there as well, formerly known as Snakey. So the player known as Snakey, you've got Rated in there as well. And Hoots, we touched on this before. Rated is actually the reserve player for Divine Mind in place of Junior. This was obviously very fascinating coming into this tournament.
Yeah, it's interesting, but respect to Junior as well for making the call to sub himself out and say, I'm probably going to be wasting your time if I'm taking part in this tournament. It is going to be really interesting to see how this Divine Mind squad goes. Josh, I think you and I in the ranked playlist a few nights ago came up against a few of these guys, and close to controller breaking it was. So I'm really interested to see how they go in this matchup.
Yeah, look, I'm still dirty after they used me to mop the floor because they really dominated. There's a reason they're here in the winners bracket final. But yeah, this squad very, very strong, and it is I think a really interesting narrative to follow. Just keeping an eye on this squad. They were one of the first, if not the first, one of the first anyway, to announce a sponsorship, to announce their team. Divine Mind, big in the scene, and they're supporting one of the best teams in the region. But the narrative to follow, obviously, is what will happen with Junior and Rated. Now, I think both are amazing players. Junior, however, I mean, I was chatting to him earlier, has committed nearly 20 years of his life to Halo. He's on the grind with his stream. He's obviously doing everything he can, but just aligning the stars to make sure that he's available is going to be a tough one. You know, we all have personal lives, especially those of us who are dinosaurs of the scene. We've all moved on, can't commit quite so much time. Hopefully he can make it, and hopefully the Divine Mind squad can get him in here. But even without Junior, we'll put him aside. We need to focus on the squad we've got in front of us, and with Rated in there, Justin, it is still a monster squad to go up against.
Absolutely. You touched on Rated there. He's a monster, and I feel like he's a player that you wind him up like a jack in the box and then he just explodes. So I'm really happy to see him get his chance off the bench and competing against Nutribullet here. So I'll be looking to him to really prove that he deserves to be on that Divine Mind roster. And Divine Mind, you touched on it, one of the first organizations to jump in the ANZ scene. They're being a big supporters throughout the dry spell that we had towards the end of Halo 5. So I'm really stoked to have them on board, and they've picked up a monster squad. There's not a weak player among them.
You know, you talked about the dry spell. We're in the desert, but the HCS for this year is our oasis. We talked about the teams and the lineups. Let's have a look at the maps that we're going to be playing on here. Again, we are still at a best of 3 until we get to that grand final where we'll see a best of 5, and we're going to start things off with that oddball. Look, a couple of changes with the oddball game type. No longer, it's not a one-hit kill, something to be aware of when you are carrying the oddball on a map like Recharge, where there's a lot of verticality to it as well, and we can use that equipment in play. Hoots, I think it's a very dynamic map and game type combo.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those maps we spoke about with the verticality element. So when you can use that grapple shot and the repulsor to really get around quickly from one level up to the top, that's going to be a big part in terms of people using that equipment to try and break setups. But I'm just really interested to see where teams actually choose to try and hold the ball. There's a few options on this map, and different teams, I'm sure, are going to have different approaches.
I'm going to move past the Slayer Bazaar and focus on that strongholds on streets. You know, streets, I actually really don't mind that map. I like playing strongholds on it. I think it's a very interesting one. Justin, you know, is there anything here between these two teams that's going to kind of split them in the way that they should be approaching this map? Is it just the power weapon control? Talk me through what it kind of means to them playing on this map.
I would just say that both teams, they just need to maintain that composure. They can't afford to give the other team an inch. You start making mistakes, they're going to capitalize on it. These aren't, you know, the lower bracket teams that got knocked out at the start of the tournament. If you get reckless and go too down, they're going to use that to collapse and rotate around the map. So holding your composure and not, you know, rushing too much will be key to victory. But we do jump on board with Barcode, absolute monster, already racking up his first kill. Does manage to grab that camo, very sneaky boy, and we will have to see Barcode maybe have some patience here and really utilize that power up there. Does find Pips, gets the flank on him, easy cleanup with the squad, and they're already racking up some points on the board, Hoots.
Yeah, and he took the option to, even while Camo sprinted around just to get to that kill and help his teammate. And that's those comps there where basically you know that you're safe to sprint and reveal yourself, but the priority is to get there and help your team secure that kill. So look, it's worth noting we're doing rounds here in Oddball now, so we obviously it's not a game type where it's just one way all the way through. We have rounds, and you have to have 2 rounds to get the W, but we see Barcode's already doing a bit of trash talk. He's 3 kills, no deaths so far. Make that 4. He's just running around the map at will, just laying down fire. And it appears like we're seeing a Nutribullet set up down here in blue. So not an area where I typically thought you'd try and hold the ball, given that there is a lot of exposure there on that bend. But that's obviously the way they've taken it here. It's going to be interesting to see if they choose to hold it that whole way through.
Yeah, I guess that silo area does give you the opportunity to play ball if you need to, and then stop the other team from racking up points, which does look like that's what ended up happening. And Nutribullet, they're already off to a 40-point lead. I just want to circle back what you were talking about before with oddballs having rounds now. I think that really creates opportunities for teams to bounce back. It's almost having like 2 games within a game, and you can really bounce back if you have a poor game 1. And it does look like Divine Mind are starting to put some points on the board. It's good to see.
Yeah, and we see that camo just not picked up there, but with the sword, Rated doing a bit of work, picking up the double. And I think it looks like we're going to have an oddball held up near the top attic, which is an area that I've found through playing the ranked playlist that quite a lot of people tend to take it to. So we've got a camo and sword in the hands of Rated. He's taken down, so that's massive right now for Nutribullet to nullify that camo. Unfortunately not able to do anything with it. Divine Mind, they've been in and around the ball a little bit, but haven't been managed to put a huge amount of time on, just knacking up those 19 seconds there, but 2 down for each, and we have the ball now in the hand of Prades, and he's going to look to hold it around this pipes area. A lot of cover. His team can take either side. There's only a couple of ways in there, but as we spoke about before, it's that grapple shot. That can be the one thing that changes everything. Players able to get up there quickly, get a back smack in, and try and break a setup.
Absolutely, and I love in Oddball watching the perspective of the ball holder, you know, checking all of those angles, just trying to give themselves as much information as possible. You can't just hide in a corner and, you know, wait for players to come to you. You've got to be prepared to rotate and move around and with your teammates, and they are starting to rack up some quite a sizable lead here for Nutribullet, not far off taking out this first round, and just great stuff to see. And Barcode, we can't stop talking about him, but he's already on 10 kills, Hoots. 11.
Make that 11. Make that 11. Not just that, only 2 deaths, so he's just running around like a madman and just out PRing. And he was willing to put a few shots into the dead body there as well. But you even saw how he just utilized that grapple hook and was flying around the map and putting shots in and strafing around it. It's just fantastic to see. But look, pretty one-sided there opening round. But as we spoke about before, the great thing about Oddball being in rounds is that you can cast that one aside, the game's not over, you've got a chance to set up again, and it's basically a full refresh. But we're going to head over here, stick with Barcode, why not? He's the one who's been the main slayer, just hanging around out in the open with camo, and once again, same as last round, he scores that camo off the start, and he chucks it in, and now he's fully camoed, able to run around and just be a bit of a sneaky beaver as he's doing the 2-shot beatdown. Unfortunately, doesn't get the kill with it, but cleans up on Pips, and he's just moving around the map so cleanly with this camo, out in the open, before his shields even pop up, putting shots in. He's just playing without a care in the world.
Absolutely, and you touched on it again. Barcode going for that camo off the rip, and it does look like they've really been studying these maps and, you know, what's our starting strats? Where are you going? Where are you going? And obviously it looks like Barcode is, you know, the steamroller that goes in for that camo, trying to get the burn. But he has managed to secure it both times, and now on board with him again, just looking for more and more slays, and not a lot of ball time so far, Hoots. It just seems to be a bit of a slay match, you know, a bit of a grudge match, you know, like, don't shoot me, I'll shoot you, and I'll teabag you, and I'll shoot your body, and not a lot of points on the board just yet.
Yeah, I think both teams seem to just be feeling each other out a little bit. You know, we're pretty much even. We've been playing this round for a minute or two now, and as you said, not much focus on the ball. I think it's mainly just because it's in a position right now where neither team really wants to hold it. It's not really in a spot that they think they can set up, and as we can see now, Madzi, with a few down, he's willing to grab that ball and start to move, and it looks like he's aiming for that blue setup again. So from what we can see, Nutribullet aiming for blue, whereas Divine Mind, when they get it, trying to get up into that attic. We did see Nutribullet at one point in the last round, once it was up there, were willing to stay there, but it seems if they do have the choice between the two, it's that blue where they're going to head.
Yeah, and just looking at the kills, they're very even so far, and the scoreline's very even, and it's good to see the Divine Mind bouncing back after that previous game, but it's not over just yet. And I think I did see that Mangler in Slay's back pocket. He does go down, jumping over to Rated. He's putting some nice shots there. Madzi finds him, though. Wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that BR. Madzi with that camo as well. He could certainly create some opportunities for his team here, Hoots. And we do see the sword sitting there on its spawn, so I'd love to see that utilised, and it does look like Berserk's grabbed it. He decides to just dive off the map, and it's like, I'm taking this sword with me, Hoots.
I don't mind it, though. It's a smart, and it's a great triple there with from Madzi with the camo, so he's really utilising that perfectly. But I don't mind the whole idea of just chucking the power weapon off. You're right. It's if I can't have it, neither can you. And we see here, we're on battle with Madzi, 9 kills, leading the slaves for this round. Barcode, he's taken a bit of a backseat, but look at those assists, 9 assists. So he's putting in a heap of fire around the map to help his team. But Madzi, this has been a great run off utilising that camo, picking up that triple. And you can see already Nutribullet started to convert that into ball time. 3 people on respawn from Divine, just thanks to Madzi's work, means it's really hard for them to put any meaningful time together.
Absolutely, and I was just loving that Madzi gameplay there, just pre-firing all the little routes that his opponent could take. Now back on board with Seduce, haven't had much action from him, but he's on 6 kills already, and the scoreline's starting to bloat out just a little bit in favor of Nutribullet. Not over just yet, but Divine Minds, they really need to clean up their act if they don't want to drop this first game, Hoots.
No, absolutely. On board with Rated now, just seeing if he can make a few moves. Not a huge amount of kills or assists, but unfortunately he's dropped and back onto Barcode. He's actually started to run ball now, so he's moved on to Objective. But look at those assists still, 9. Putting in a lot of shots, and now he's just holding the ball here, and they're only 20 seconds off taking this first game. Interesting point holding here rather than actually heading into that attic, just holding on this ball. Nades coming in everywhere. Manages to pretty much jump over one and get a nade off, but unfortunately he's taken down, Rated with the ball, and it looks like he's just going to try and clear out of there. Or in fact, it looks like he's going to hold. So he does have to be careful, though. He has quite a few Nutribullet players coming at him from several angles. He's actually going to back off and leave the ball, which is smart, just try and stay alive. But unfortunately, the sheer weight of numbers, Seduce is going to come in and drop him. And Nutribullet's going to look to just try and get away with this ball. Nice double from Seduce, and all they need is 10 more seconds. So Seduce probably going to take down Pips here and then. Unfortunately, he's dropped, so maybe Divine taking the ball blue and trying to give, I guess, Nutribullet a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah, Slays with a double kill there, Hoots. Really using that clamber to utilize his cover and takes down Barcode. Amazing use of the map geometry there from Slays, putting in a lot of kills for his team. And I'd like to just highlight Slays for a second here on the double digits for his squad. Now on board with Madzi as he tries to find a kill. Does go down and Seduce with that ball. You can see him clambering around there, trying to rack up points for his team. He's just going to scrape together those final points, and they're going to take game 1, Hoots.
Yeah, it was unfortunately all 4 dead at the end there for Divine Mind. Not much you can do when the other team only needs a few more seconds of ball time. So great way to wrap that up. That's the first game done, but it was pretty comprehensive, both slaying and objective. They just really couldn't get into it, Divine Mind, unfortunately. So they'll be looking forward to taking the opportunity for the next game to try and peg one back.
Absolutely, and I think it boils down a little bit to those rotations. I feel Nutribullet was able to move the ball around the map a little bit more fluidly and rack up those points, while Divine Mind is a little bit more scrappy, just string together 5 or so seconds there and end up losing the ball. So round 1 goes to Nutribullet, but I wouldn't count Divine Minds out just yet. They're just as hungry. And highlighting some of the stats here, 20 bomb for Barcode and Madzi, Seduce and Pratt with 14 apiece themselves, and double-digit assist for Barcode. So really performing for his squad. Accuracy across the board. Is it a surprise that all of these guys are pulling up big numbers in the accuracy department, Hoots?
No, not at all, but even the damage dealt, Barcode just throwing so much fire down on the map. It's Praties, obviously he played a lot of objectives, so you wouldn't expect him to be dishing out a huge amount of damage, but that's just massive from Barcode, 5,915. He was the one putting the shots in. He played objective when he needed to, but you mentioned before, Justin, it just felt like that Nutribullet were happy to hold the ball either side, really. They could do it at blue, they could do it up in the attic, it really didn't matter. And I think one of the big things with Barcode is control of that camo. Every time he used it, super effective. And even Madzi, when he got it once or twice, was able to pick up some triples here and there and break setups. And that's what that camo's there for, it's to break setups, and he used it perfectly.
Absolutely, and I love seeing a little bit of body shooting, because these guys, they're good friends, but today they're rivals, and they've been trying to make the best squads to play against each other. And I love to see a little bit of that cheeky banter going on in-game, but it does translate to a win for Nutribullet off that one. Maybe a little bit of the trash talk getting to Divine Mind's heads.
Yeah, the thing that was interesting was Barcode was just absolutely roaming the map out in the open everywhere, putting down shots, and they just couldn't drop him. He's playing with this level of confidence that just opens the map up for his team so well in that oddball game. It just means that your own teammates can be running the ball through pretty open areas to get to another point. They can move the ball so much more freely and rotate where they need to. So he was fantastic that game.
Absolutely, but we are moving on to this next game, Slayer Bazaar. We've already seen it with CTF, and I feel like they would play quite a bit differently. Is there anything that you would like to see from the previous series that we've seen on CTF Bazaar?
Well, the one thing that's different, I guess, when you go into a Slayer is that the spawn system completely changes. So rather than spawning at the same base or in different areas of that base each time, you can spawn all over the map. So it's a time when, as a player, you need to be aware of everything around you, 360 degrees. So you can be dominating in one position, but the next thing you know, someone's easily spawned behind you, run up and smack you in the back. So that's something that's going to be interesting to see in terms of setups and where teams choose to go. Are they moving around a lot given the spawn system, trying to find that? Well, that's the other question as well, right? I mean, have these teams figured out the spawn system yet? It's pretty similar to past Halos, but knowing those spawn points, knowing that when a certain amount of damage is done here or there, that players are likely to spawn in this spot, that's stuff that, you know, a lot of teams are probably trying to figure out now, and the top teams will have had a pretty good idea so far, and they'll be able to utilize that to get the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Collapsing on those spawners, and we have that big open area on the map as well. It's I think speed on those collapses and rotating is just going to be so critical. You can't be caught in the no man's land in the center of the map. You're just easy pickings. You can be shot from so many different angles. You're just a sitting duck. So those collapses on the spawners, they're going to have to do them swiftly. Otherwise, they're going to be caught out.
But that's what that overshield, I guess, changes in terms of if you've got that overshield, you've got it in, you can be that crazy person standing in the middle of the map just putting shots everywhere. You know, it gives you that extra layer of protection. You can take more shots. You're pretty much like wearing a helmet in a game of footy, and you can just be running straight through people. So the control of that's going to be absolutely critical, and that in turn leads to the ability to try and lock down those rockets. And we've seen what rockets have done even in the previous Slayer on streets that we saw in the last series. You know, that can be, if used semi-effectively, 2 guaranteed kills. So teams are going to try and use that overshield to land those rockets down. But yeah, I'm just not 100% sure where teams will try and set up on this map. If it is going to be a case of holding a particular area, or if they will try and run around a lot more freely. It's something that, I guess, being a new game, first tournament we've seen, that we're just not really sure how it'll pan out.
Well, Hoots, I'd say considering these teams, you know, they're more the new kids on the block in terms of Halo history. You know, people will call them the Halo 5 kids, and that was a very fast, intense game. And we saw that shift when Splice came onto the scene, and everything just became fast-paced, and it was just constant collapsing. And I would say that maybe these guys will lean into that a little bit more and worry less about the setups and more of that fundamentals of working together. And that's a strength for some guys, that they know each other, they know their team, they know how they like to play, and they'll probably lean into that.
I think it's worthwhile as well talking about one of the elements from Halo 5 that we haven't seen transition across completely, which is the thruster pack. You know, something that everyone had back in Halo 5 and was a massive part of every individual fight. It's now a piece of equipment. You know, are people finding it as useful? I haven't seen a huge amount of use for it yet in the games that we've seen so far that the thruster pack has been on. It seems people are favouring the repulsor and the grapple hook a bit more, but you know, that thruster pack was such an integral part of Halo 5 that I imagine we will see certain players start to try and, whenever they have the chance, pick that up and gravitate back, because it is something that can change every single fight.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I mean, talking about that thruster, and I don't know if you've found it with Halo 5, you expect it to be there, the muscle memory, you know, you dip left or to the right, a little bit of a crouch to jump, and then thrust to the side. And because you don't always have that anymore, that muscle memory when you're taking a 1v1 fight, how often is that, you know, that switch in your brain goes, I'm going to utilize the thruster here. But the repulsor, it's kind of, you use it to move around the map, and, you know, you doing jumps and things like that, and it's a little bit less in the moment that, say, utilizing a thruster would be. So maybe a little bit of that muscle memory not kicking in, but I think we'll see players utilize each of those pieces of equipment as we go forward and the meta kind of forms itself.
You're speaking my language as, you know, someone who's getting a little bit older and struggling a little bit more in Halo games as each one comes out. I've found that I have often fallen back thinking I have that thruster pack in my back pocket and smashing the X button, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm just standing still, and I'm a sitting duck. So, yeah, that's something that a lot of players are going to have to get used to. For some of these players who you said are new Halo, you know, started with Halo 5, that it's something they may come to expect from every game, and now it's taken away. It was a massive part of the sandbox. So, not having that there is something that will be challenging for some. But, you know, I mean, just look at the quality of play we've already seen. The game's been out for 5 days. Well, not even 5 days, and we're seeing top quality play from some great teams who many of whom have actually just come together in the last couple of days as well. So it just bodes really well for the rest of the roadmap for the rest of the year heading into October for the World Championships in 2022. But meanwhile, we're getting ready now. As we said before, Slayer on Bazaar. We've got the rockets, the OS, that grapple shot's there down bottom mid as well. First to 50 kills, and Justin, I'm going to hand it over to you.
No worries, and I hope to see some grapple plays in this with that rocket. Death from above, and we're just loading into the players now. And, you know, Nutribullet, the one up in the series, but I would not count Divine Minds out. There's some hungry boys ready for victory. And we're starting it off again with Barcode, who is just such an absolute monster, putting in some shots, trying to push them off. It looks like they're trying to collapse on the rockets here. Slay's getting the better of Barcode there, putting him into the respawn screen. Now on board with my boy Ali Berserk. He does get sent into respawn as well. Prady's trying to get some angles here for his team, trying to get the clean up on Pips, but he just sneaks away. Sneaky little beaver, and there's the rocket, and Slay's there. Like, leave Pips alone, that's my friend, and he gets taken down to the double doors. Now on board with Madzi with those rockets. Still got both to play with. We'll have to see if he can set up a bit of a collapse for his team here, Hoots.
I think they've got OS there as well, so Perfect just sits there, waits for Pips to run through the alleyway and drops. Interesting that he decided to stay here at rocket spawn with these rockets rather than move around. That's ballsy, putting a rocket down with teammates running around, but it worked out perfectly and grabbed a second kill. So 2 kills from 2 rockets. That's exactly what you want out of that. And now he's moving into the bar, and he's just probably sussing out where the other team is spawning, but it looks like they're spawning in the back flag. So he's going to have a bit of time to run around freely in this bottom mid. But still, most of this Divine Mind squad pinned down in the back here. And Madzi looks like he's got the scent and he's heading in.
Yeah, you can see he's being so calculated with his movement. It's like, yeah, there's Berserk. He's a bit weak, but I'm not going to collapse in there. All his mates are in there hanging out, ready to collapse on Madzi as he goes in. He finds himself a kill. His patience paying off, and scoreline, we're just going to highlight that for a second. Nutribullet's got all the fruit in the blender and making themselves a nice smoothie for breakfast, and Divine Mind struggling a little bit once again, Hoots.
Yeah, this is getting pretty nasty pretty quickly, really. We're just seeing them race out to a very big lead. It's across the board, really strong slays coming from both Deduce and Barcode here. We're on board with Barcode as he's moving up into this top balcony here, putting shots across the map and using that cover really well as well. That's one of the advantages, even though you might feel like you're out in the open on that balcony, those little ledges there can provide great cover, and he's just peeking from this bar, and it looks like even shots just straight there through double doors, and picking up assists. He's just running riot and out to a 13 kill lead already. This one looks like it's getting out of hand quite quickly.
Yeah, and Madzi with that OS and the thruster pack to utilize, picks himself up 2 kills. I think he thought a grenade dropped at his feet there, and he's grabbing that Bulldog ready to bite some people as well. He's got one more thrust charge in the bank, it looks like, and he's trying to cut off those angles in the double doors, putting in so much damage across the map. And now it looks like the collapse is starting to form up. Madzi sniffing out Pips up there. He goes down with some team fire going through. Raided managing to get better of Barcode, but look at that in the kill feed, just people dropping left and right. And Madzi maybe hanging it out down bottom mid a little bit too long there, Hoots, and does go down. Yeah,
that can be a tricky spot if you get stuck down there, because the jump to get out of there is actually, it's not hard, but it leaves you super exposed and takes a while. We've got these rockets up now. Obviously, you can nade them out if you want, so that looks like what Prady's was trying to do, but I think they're still there on respawn. Berserk, he's just sitting at the base of the rocket stairs, but I don't think he's going to be able to get up there while his shields are like that. And I think rockets have been taken. As you can see, it's Madzi with them again, and well done there from Berserk, who managed to wait a little bit before going in and attacking and getting those rockets back. But as you can see, Nutribullet are the ones who recover them again. Prady's bottom mid with them, running around. That OS is popping in 25 seconds, but he's got these rockets, and he's probably going to put them to work with a predictive rocket up at Slays. Must have got the call out. Doesn't connect completely to finish the kill, but I'm sure he's damaged him a bit, and he's going to head in, try and clean this kill up.
Yeah, I love what Pratt was doing there, and he put some damage into Berserk, just hanging around that commando spawn there. He's just moving around the map really well, putting in damage for all his teammates, checking those angles, and look at him just sniffing players out. Where's the next one, boys? Where's the next one? Racking up another doubles there if he wants it. Slays desperately trying to stay alive. Unfortunately, Pratt not able to add that kill to the stat line as he runs out of ammo, but he's really just sniffing them out. And speaking of sniffing, there's the Bulldog woof woof.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking at Barcode in the scoreboard here. 11 kills, 9 assists. So he's just going nuts. He's just been running around bottom mid for a lot of the map, which is crazy. But seeing an interesting route here, Prady's not choosing to go down the drop vent, but it is a great spot there to hide and take cover. He's still got this Bulldog, and he's going to try some long range shots. Don't connect, but Slays once again. Looks like he's caught unawares, manages to get away, but this will be, we've stopped away, so that doesn't matter, but Slay's getting away through the river there, and now we're on board with Pips. He's only got 2 kills. He's been struggling quite a bit. and he's stuck in this little cubby area that we were speaking about before, so he's going to want to try and do some damage and get out of there quickly because, as we've seen there, it's just a really easy area to get caught and stuck in.
Yeah, Nutribullet is just running away with it. They're 43 to 23. 20 kills the difference, and almost doubling the scoreline right now. And you can see it. Nutribullet are just so comfortable moving around the map. They can just go where they like, look at the angles that they like, and Divine Mind's not really answering them in the kill department, unfortunately. Look at those nades from Berserk, desperately trying to cut off those angles. Does manage to nab himself a kill though, Hoots. So Berserk trying to do everything he can to keep his squad in.
Yeah, unfortunately, just look at these scores coming in from Nutribullet, and it's not just the kills, but it's the assists. It just shows the team shots working so much stronger. So, you know, it was a series we thought might be a little bit closer than this, but I think this just shows how strong this Nutribullet team really is. Like this is a spanking in every sense of the word. It's potentially going to be a spectacular if Divine Mind can't nab another kill or two. But this has just been across the board super impressive from Nutribullet.
Yeah, this is certainly not an off-brand Nutribullet blender from Target. This is the genuine brand, just such high quality sportsmanship from these guys, and just absolutely stomping this other squad, which was arguably, you know, it was a big discussion leading up, you know, who is the #1 squad, and it was both of these guys, but I think it's pretty clear that Nutribullet, they're just making their move on the ANZ scene and establishing themselves as the top squad.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw at the end then the spectacular medal, so that's a 20 kill stomping, which I didn't think we expected, Josh. I'm not sure about you.
No, they got the full steak dinner, they got the dessert and all. I did not expect it to be that much of a blowout on the Slayer. 50 to 30, you guys were saying it. It just shows the dominance of the Nutribullet squad. Amazing stuff from both teams, really, but Nutribullet just obviously head and shoulders above there, at least in the winners final. I do want to call out, and it's a narrative we spoke of earlier, but we should rehash it because I think it's relevant, and also for those just tuning in, and that's about this squad that they haven't, the Divine Mind squad. They didn't go into this tournament with the team lineup that was announced. Now, would that have changed the result? Would Junior in place of Rated have actually changed the result of this? I don't know. I don't think anyone can know the true answer to that, but because Rated himself is an excellent player, you know, formerly known as Stakey. We've seen him play on main stages at ESL events and former HCS events here in ANZ. But when you don't have your full lineup, Hoots, or at least the one you were planning to use originally, that's going to make an impact.
Yeah, but it goes back to what Justin said before in terms of with the roadmap and everything now having some certainty of what events are coming up, meaning that you really should try and keep that team together. So that's one thing that I remember we used to speak about this, 10 years ago, Josh, is that at the end of events, just hoping that teams would stick together to keep that teamwork and cohesion going. A lot of times people are quick to make moves, and so, whilst it's been disappointing for Divine Mind that they've been taken care of pretty easily in this round, you assume that they'll at least, stick together and work on things because, like we said, this game's only been out for 5 days. They haven't had a huge amount of time to prepare.
Very, very true, very true. And Justin, as we're going through some of these highlights, it really was just the Nutribullet show. I still stand by what I said. I think there might have been a difference, but how much it would have been, I don't know, when it seems like there was just such a clear differentiator. Even if you take out that one player, we saw even the likes of, let's say, Pips there, who was unfortunately fallen behind a little bit. I saw that he was stuck on just a couple of digit kills, if that, 2 or 3 kills at one stage. I don't know if he got much higher. So, it may not have changed the result, right?
I don't think so. And circling back to not having Cuny there, sometimes it's not up to the quality of the player that you have replace them. Sometimes it's just the mentality of, we've got this build coming in and, it's like those other guys have had their full squad together and, once those doubts starts creeping in, I mean, Hoot said earlier today that Halo is a very mental game, and as soon as those doubts start creeping in, they take root, and that can just cost you games.
Yeah, indeed it can. Look, regardless, no matter what was in the mentals, we are going to be seeing Divine Mind go down into the lower bracket final, so we'll see how that match is going to go down, and of course Nutribullet into the grand final of our first ever Halo Infinite event here for ANZ. I think that's really awesome to see them there. A surprise to absolutely no one. They were paying $1 at the bookie, and look, I think it's almost as certain that they're going to be taking this one out, considering the way that they just played in that winners bracket final. Hoots, with all of that said, if you were going to be in the team, which is likely, just given results, to be Divine Mind, who we may see in the grand final, you know, after that series we just saw, if you're the coach, what do you tell this squad? How could we possibly come back from what we just saw in that series? Yeah, well, I think it's really, sorry, I think we might have had a technical hiccup there. So we're going to be moving on. We do have our interview lined up. So I think we've got Madzi. So let's have a chat to the one kid there as well. Madzi, I think we've got you. G'day. Thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on the win. Mate, we were just talking about, you know, the expectations coming into this series. We think that, you know, we kind of expected this would be the result. Maybe a little bit more of a dominating performance than what we expected. Tell me, from your perspective, were the results what you expected? Was the scoreline what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I'd say it was as expected, but the score, I didn't expect the scorelines to be like that. I thought they played a bit better. I mean, nonetheless, they played pretty decent, but I thought, yeah, we just were the better team.
Madzi, I'm interested in your oddball strategy. It seemed like you guys were willing to hold the ball both down in blue as well as up in the attic. Do you guys have a set place where you do prefer to hold that, or is it a case of we'll just take it wherever we can get it?
With oddballs, there's like multiple spots on the map where you can set up. So you can set up gold, silo, and elevator side. So regardless of what side of the map you're holding, you can just hold it there. And if we're holding the right positions and we're watching where they're pushing from, we'll be fine.
Now, Madzi, my boy, Halo 5, you were kind of known as having the best pistol shot. It was kind of like your little baby, you know, you take it into bed with you at night as your teddy bear. How do you feel that we've gone away from the pistol, we've got the battle rifle? Are you hurt? Are you worried about the future?
Nah, I'm loving it, man. The BR is nice. It's very clean. I'm loving it. I do miss the pistol, the single shot, but I still really enjoy the BR. It's really good.
That's actually a really interesting point, Mads, because it's something we touched on. You know, a couple of us here, we're we're dinosaurs, we're OGs, and BR is love, BR is life. But obviously, you made a real name for yourself in Halo 5. I do still distinctly recall starting the Madzi fan club. Now you said you missed the pistol. Yeah. Let me ask you, what's your take on the sidekick versus BR and being the primary competitive starting weapon for Halo Infinite?
Oh, the BR 100%. The sidekick, it has bloom. Shoots a little bit too quick. The BR is definitely the way to go for sure. I'm so glad they went with the BR.
Glad to see that. Glad to see that you provided the correct answer, Madzi. I didn't want to have to cancel the fan club, but no. In all seriousness, mate, I really appreciate having you on. Looking like you guys are putting on a very, very dominant performance. I can't wait to see you guys finish out this tournament, but no doubt represent ANZ as well, mate. So good luck in the grand final, and thanks for joining us, buddy.
Alright, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So there you heard it from Madzi, superstar, I think, and definitely a future guy to look out for on the main stage when it comes to global events as well. I mean, Justin, you've been able to see a lot of him in the Halo 5 matchups as well. Like, it's been a couple of years, I guess, since at least us here at ESL, and coming from the perspective of HCS, have seen Madzi compete on any kind of high tier level, but yourself and the Halo Australia team have seen him around the traps. Has he remained high tier coming into Halo Infinite? And what are your thoughts? Is this exactly where you expected to find him?
Exactly where I expected. Madzi and Barcode were two highlight players that I just knew would rise to the top. And throughout Halo 5, you just saw them creep up the placings and move into that top spot. We saw Immunity dominate for so long, and I think it's time for a new dynasty for ANZ Halo.
I think so as well, mate. We'll see what the old guns have to say about it. But look, we'll see how the rest of this tournament's going to unfold. For now, we do want to give a shout out to a tournament that's coming up. We've talked about it a couple of times throughout this broadcast. The Game Pass has PC Games Open Series featuring Halo Infinite, smash.gg/Xbox. We already talked about it, an all expenses paid trip to HCS Raleigh, flight, hotel, and team pass. I see on the Twitterverse that the team passes are all sold out for Raleigh. I'm going to assume that this is going to be one of your final chances to get a team pass to this event.